Well, as I promised 2 weeks ago, I would have something new for the class. And I had several suggestions in that. Cindy's was probably the best one in the fact that there's a lot of things that we read in the Old Testament I don't think that we really understand that much. I mean, we look at it and we think, that's just history type stuff, you know. But it's quite interesting if you get into it. When you start looking at all of the things, and we're not going to start at the very beginning, but we are going to be studying the book of Chronicles. And that is when you start in the book of Chronicles, you're basically going to start in the beginning because it starts with about 9 chapters of genealogy from Adam clear on through. Now we've looked at some of this genealogy when we were studying Ruth, and in the fact that, you know, the Davidic line clear back through Naomi, all of those going up through. I think it's interesting that we have these things on our mind of how God works. Because how he worked back then with his people is the same way that he's working with us today. We look at Israel. Were they a faithful people?
Sometimes.
Exactly. There we go. That's the perfect answer. Sometimes. Are we a faithful people? Sometimes. Sometimes we slip, don't we? We mess up. It's the same thing then. Luckily, God is still going to have judgment, isn't he? But it's not going to be as immediate as it was back then. Do you remember how a lot of things happened when they were not faithful to him? When they were led astray by idols or whatever? The consequences were pretty dire, weren't they? Sometimes they were swallowed up. Sometimes they were massacred. Their enemies killed them. They were put into exile. They were not led into the promised land. He dealt with them pretty severely, didn't he? When they weren't faithful. Today, we don't necessarily have that. I mean, if we mess up, lightning's not going to probably strike us, is it, and kill us dead?
You never know.
We don't. And I'm not going to test that theory either. But the thing of it is that we are still held responsible, though, aren't we? We are still held accountable. Just as they were then. He laid down from the beginning when the law was given to them from Mount Sinai. He laid down a law, didn't he? And what did he expect from that law? That they would do it. That they would follow it.
Total obedience.
Total obedience. Not just partial. He wanted total obedience. What was the first commandment?
Total obedience.
No other God before him. No other God. What was their problem? There were so many other gods, weren't there? And why not? I mean, we can see this one. Remember the golden calf? They threw all their jewelry in, make a golden calf, let's worship it because we can see it. Because what? Moses is up on the mountain, we ain't seen him for days. We got to have something tangible. What about today?
Same thing.
We don't necessarily have golden idols, do we? But if we reach in our pocket, we have gold there, don't we? If we look at our neighbor who has all of the goodies, we have a tendency to covet. We have a lot of things that are very, very similar to what they went through then. It's just as important now as it was then to be able to put God first. as we look at Chronicles, and like I say, and I don't know how far we're going to get into it this week. I'm just going to maybe kind of give a little introduction and that to it. But like I say, the first 9 chapters is genealogy, going from Adam clear on through. And that's probably what I'll give you as an assignment for this week, is to read the first 9 chapters of First Chronicles. Now, Chronicles originally was one book, and then it was split into 2. So I will just refer to it as Chronicles as a general term until I start looking up specific verses, and then we'll go to 1st or 2nd Chronicles. But in a nutshell, it's basically telling us how God still cares for his nation. How he still wants them to be faithful to him. He doesn't like what they have been doing in the past, and he still wants them to come back. What do we know about Israel as a whole? They were his chosen people, right? What else do we know about them? And I'm gonna throw this out there and just see how knowledgeable we are on this. Because I think it's something that's important for us to know. It's probably not going to be something that we bring up in trying to witness to somebody, to present the gospel to them. It's probably not something we'd bring up then. But it's something that we need to know because, as I said before, it follows clear on through how God cares for his people from the very beginning. Roger, did you have something?
Well, I thought you asked a question.
I did, and you haven't answered.
Well,
What do we know about Israel?
The Messiah would come through their lineage.
Through the lineage. Dan.
They're also very weak.
Exactly.
They were able to be taken into slavery. Every time something went wrong, they turned away.
Yep.
They were very weak people.
War was very complex, very wiped out people. Sometimes he said, hey,
Well, yeah, exactly. They weren't, when they were on fire for God, they were on fire, weren't they?
right.
And then, and like Dan said, but they couldn't hold that, it didn't seem like.
Right.
It's not like they could really stick with it because things came up. You know, I mean, they come up against an enemy of theirs. Okay, they ask God for protection. Help us with this battle. He goes in. He helps them with that. Then they do this again, and he says, okay, now this is the way I want you to do it, and you will have success. You will win. And they decide, you know, but that isn't really practical. I think we should do it this way. It's more practical. We want to use 10,000 men, and he wants us to use what? No. And then what happens? They don't trust God, and then they go into battle, and then what happens? They lose. Well, what's the matter with God? He told us we'd win, but there was specific things they had to do, and they didn't do those things.
They doubted God.
And it's the same with us today, isn't it? It's the same thing with us today. He tells us, there are things that I want you to do.
Hear to hear,
Yep.
and act upon it, and then do it.
We're not supposed to just give lip service to him, are we? Unfortunately, that's kind of common today, isn't it?
Right.
People want to just give lip service. They don't want to really take it seriously that hey, he says, I need to do this. I guess I need to do this then, don't I? It's not questionable. It's, I need to do it. No matter how tough it is. He has told us, hasn't he, in his word that he will never give us more than we can handle? When you think it's overwhelming, I always figure, you know, God, why do you have so much trust in me that I can do this? Because I just don't think I can. But when it seems overwhelming, he knows how much I can take. And it's not for me to decide. He's already prepared me for that. If we get into a situation that's seems to be there's no way out. He's already prepared us for that. It's whether we can wrap our heads around it and do it. So back to Israel. What happened to Israel? There was how many tribes were in Israel? 12 tribes of Israel. How did that come about?
Israel is Reuben, Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad.
And who were they the sons of? Jacob. Okay, if you really get into looking at that, okay, the Levites were a tribe, but they weren't necessarily counted as landowners. The land-owning tribes, there were 12 of them, and Joseph, basically his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, I think, his two sons were given land as two different tribes, which made up for Joseph being out of it and the Levites being out of it. The Levites couldn't have land. What were the Levites known for? The priests. They were a priestly tribe. Later on, what happens with them? We hear of the north and the south. What does that mean? Divided kingdom. Okay, what did the divided kingdom have to do with this whole thing? How many were in the north? Two. How many were in the south? Huh? No. 10. Do I have that right? North, 2, or it's the opposite? Come on now. Do we know this?
It's almost like in the whole Genesis and all of that, all the tribes that they had.
Well, we're just talking about the 12 tribes of Israel. And then they split, and there's 10, and I had that on my mind this morning, and then there was like 10,000 other things that went on. I think it's the northern tribe was Judah or Israel. The southern tribe was Judah, the northern tribe was Israel. Israel was 10 tribes. So who were the two, Judah and what? What?
Judah and Levi.
Benjamin. Judah and Benjamin. That was the two. They were known as Judah. The Levites were kind of with both. I mean, they were the priestly tribe for both. Then all the other 10 were basically the others. Who ended up being under Persian rule? You remember? The 10 were under Persian rule. And then the 2, Judah and Benjamin, were under the Babylonian rule. We've heard of the Babylonian exile. When we look at this and we see this genealogy and everything, who was the first king? Saul. Who was he of the tribe of?
Babylonian?
No, the Israel tribes, Lyle. Who was he who was he descendant from what tribe? Benjamin. Who was the king after Saul? David. Who was he the tribe of? Judah. He's from the tribe of Judah. Who picked the king? Who picked Saul? God did, didn't he? What happened with Saul? How did Saul handle his whole deal? Was he a good king to start with?
Was a good king.
It was what the people wanted, right? They wanted a king. He was good to start with, wasn't he? But then what happened?
He turned bad.
He became jealous and he disobeyed God's order.
Exactly. He disobeyed. He wasn't faithful to God. He thought he could do it his way. Boy, what a reminder for us, isn't it? I can do it my way. What happened then? What happened to Saul?
Solomon's sons were killed.
He fell upon his sword. What happened to his kids? His boys?
House.
They were killed. Who were they fighting? Remember? The Philistines. The Philistines. Who comes on the scene then? David. David comes on the scene as what? The guy coming in the purple robe?
No, he was a shepherd boy.
A shepherd boy. He was not a kingly material there, was he? He was not one to say, oh yeah, that's the king right there. He comes in as a shepherd boy with a sling. Now remember, his other brothers were there too, weren't they? They were manly men.
He killed Goliath.
But David comes in as just someone that is, hey, God has been with me when I've been out with the sheep. I've had lions, I've had bears attack. I've taken care of that because I had God on my side. And when David comes on the scene, basically with the army, and he sees the giant, does it bother him?
No.
Is he quaking in his shoes?
No,
Why isn't he?
because God's with him.
God is with him. His faith is in God, not in armor, not in a sword, not in, hey, we're the king here. We got the king behind us. And how does he attack this situation at hand?
He prays before he does.
Okay, he prays. He goes and gathers stones, and then how does he attack this situation at hand? When the Goliath is standing there,
He volunteers to fight him because he was perturbed that he would come out and challenge him every day and they did nothing.
exactly. And then how did he go out there? Did he go out there shaking in his boots? Did he try to flank him or anything? How did he go out there? He went out there running towards him. He was not afraid, was he?
In his early 20s.
Yeah, I mean,
He was very.
right. He wasn't. You know, sometimes it's depicted that he's like a 12-year-old boy. I don't think that's the case. He was
He became king at age 30.
right.
This, he was in his early 20s. He confronted, but that was considered a boy that in those days.
Right. I think according to Jewish law, you're not really considered a man until you're 30.
30, yeah.
So if they said he was a boy, whatever, then it would be sometime before 30. But he goes out there with confidence, doesn't he? And he slays the king. Or, not the king. He slays Goliath. From that point on, who anointed David as king? Samuel. From that point on, was there any question who was going to be the king of Israel? Wasn't.
But Saul was after.
Granted, David made quite a few mistakes, didn't he? As king. He wasn't perfect. It would be nice to have that example, wouldn't it? In the Old Testament? That he was the perfect king, but no, he messed up. Just like we mess up.
He's a human like us.
Human, exactly. And then his son, who was who? Solomon. And then Solomon went on as what? Wisest man. Okay, now he was the wisest man. Was he faithful to God in every way? No. He might have been wise, but he messed up too, didn't he? What was his main weakness? Women. That was it. And he had way too many. 300. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine. Just no.
He lived in unrest.
Exactly, yes. I can see why that would be.
Uh-oh, the harem.
But, and then after Solomon dies, that is when the kingdoms basically split. David was holding them together, pretty much. Solomon was trying his best to hold them together. But after Solomon dies, that's when basically they split. That's when it's 2 and 10. And then, go ahead, Roger.
And they all served 40 years each.
Exactly. Then they go into exile. Judah does, into Babylonian exile. In Chronicles, God wants to remind them that if you will just return to me, if you will just return to me, things will be better. If we look in the first part, he includes, it's a kind of an all-inclusive, when we look at the genealogy, when we go through, like I say, when you read the first 9 chapters, you're going to probably think, how boring is this? And I'll guarantee you it is. It is boring. Because a lot of these names you're not going to be able to pronounce. You're thinking, what is the deal? But it is setting the stage for basically, God is including everyone. Everyone. And if we wanted to throw our name in there, we can. Because we're included. He wants everyone to know that I want you to be faithful to me and me alone.
And second, is even with a little bit of names, too.
If you look in chapter 1 of 1 Chronicles, over in 38, it talks about the people of Seir and Edom. What do we know about Edom? Do we know much about them? The Edomites were enemies of Israel. If you look in Obadiah, you'll see where basically they did not treat Israel well at all. They were enemies. Why would he include them in here? Why would he include them in here?
Maybe some of them turned, maybe some of them didn't.
Remember when we were in Ruth, how basically Gentiles were included? How we talked about that a bit? What's he doing here?
He's including them.
Enemies of Israel? Would we have that same concept of including our enemies in something good? I mean, it's not in our human nature to do that, is it? We don't want to include our enemies in something good. But yet God here is including them in this, trying to help them to know, if you are faithful, no matter who you are, even if you're the enemy of my people, you will be taken care of.
If you will believe.
But there's qualifications, isn't there? Just like there is today. There's qualifications that we have to meet. So it's inclusive. If we look at chapter 2, in 1 Chronicles, start in verse 1. These were the sons of Israel: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And then it goes on to the sons of Judah: Onan, and Shelah. These three were born to him by a Canaanite woman, the daughter of Shua. Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. And then it goes on, Tamar, Judah's daughter-in-law, bore him Perez and Zerah. And Judah had 5 sons in all. That goes back to Ruth, doesn't it? Remember when we was talking about Perez? Tamar? But what happens to here? Lord puts him to death. Why? What does it tell us?
He was wicked.
He was what? Wicked in the Lord's sight. He just, boom, put him to death. Have we ever been wicked in the Lord's sight? I'm glad that he doesn't do it that way now. Reading on down, verse 7. The son of Carmi. Some have Achar, A-C-H-A-R. That is actually Achan, who brought trouble on Israel by violating the ban on taking devoted things. Achan. We've heard about Achan, haven't we? Do we know the story?
He told to destroy everything and he kept them.
Destroy everything in what battle? What were they taking over? Jericho. Jericho. Once again, walking around the walls of Jericho and all that. Do it the way you should. They did, didn't they? They did it exactly. And I'm thinking, in their mind, they're thinking, why are we doing this? We got to walk how many times around?
7.
And then blow the trumpets? And then what? This huge city, these walls are going to crumble? They did it exactly his way. And what happened? The walls came down. Everything was great, wasn't it? Except, as Abby said, they were to destroy everything, weren't they? Where does Achan come in on this? What does he do? Got a little greed going on inside. He sees some things that he'd like to have. And what's he do? He takes them and he hides them. Nobody else is going to know, are they? Nope, he hides them in the tent. What happens in the successing battles that they have? They lose. They can't figure it out, can they? What's going on here?
Because Achan destroyed.
God was supposed to be with us, right? And what happens? They find out why.
Achan stole the
What did they do with Achan?
stone.
No more. Once again, God had his way, didn't he? Achan did wrong. God had his way. Achan is no more. And I'm out of time here, but next week we will look at a few more of these. You're probably going to read about Jabez, the prayer of Jabez. That's very common. That's one that we're going to look at next week with the prayer of Jabez and what he was about. And then we'll go on through, and I don't know if we'll read every bit of chapter 9 in the class, but if you read it between now and next week, then we'll kind of skip through and look at some specifics, and we'll all know. Dan.
One thing just to note going back, the people that, like we were talking about, that, whatever his name, or whatever his name.
Yeah, her.
The people around him probably didn't understand. But in Samuel, chapter 16, the Lord speaks to Samuel and says, "Do not look at the appearance or the height of the statue, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not the man as man sees, but looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on his heart."
His heart.
So we may not see it But the Lord, just like Judas, when the apostles, they couldn't figure out what was wrong, but God knew his heart.
Right.
And we need to be careful with our heart.
Exactly. Because what we see in this world, we don't have a clue, do we? Just like they looked at David and said, "Wait, he's not going to be our king. He's not going to defeat Goliath. He's running to his death." But then when he drops Goliath and then goes out there and takes Goliath's own sword and cuts his head off, they're pretty thrilled then, aren't they? But they wouldn't give him the time of day before that, would they? No, you're not going to do this. So we can't judge people by outward appearance, because we don't know.
Even David's brothers mocking him, don't go home.
Exactly. Yeah, why do you get back with the sheep?
Yeah.
That's where you belong, shepherd. But in knowing that much, and knowing that Christ came through that lineage, and what is Christ? He is our shepherd. He's shepherding us. And you look at the parallels of all of this. It's amazing.
Even David was referred to as a shepherd.
Exactly. Well, we're out of time. I gave you about 12 minutes to get